Okay. Is everybody ready?
I'm
I'm
all
ready.
set.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right, here we go. 5, 4, 3.
Arenas and bubbles.
Yeah, that's good. There we go. Imagine this from your favorite player on your favorite team.
Pierce with 5 seconds left. Pierce with 3. Pierce with 2. Pierce following at the horn.
Your favorite player may not be Paul Pierce. I don't know whose is, but if you know who he is, you can enjoy that. If you don't know who he is, you can still enjoy that. The beauty is knowing you have the full context, you have the full understanding, and almost all the excitement you need, and this is just the cherry on top. But how do we get to this fully framed and mounted moment where the final element can cause this? Peak excitement. This is what we're looking for as we go into our bubble a little later today. How do we still maintain that at 6:30 tonight, right after our show? Well, let's start here. These big monstrosities. How much do you think these billion-dollar tax hacks actually add to the game? What's kind of crazy is that you may get the same level of atmosphere and excitement from a much smaller college arena. And in some situations, you can get it in a high school arena. It's not about the size of the crowd. It's about being packed in there and in unison with a group of other people. And let me put it this way. I may be romanticizing high school, but I don't think there's any better feeling than when you can feel the floor shake. That's a good game. And that can rival an arena like this. And it definitely is better than this. No offense to Detroit, but I'll take a packed high school game. Side note, you know what's interesting? When teams put out their ideas for new stadiums, and they have their CGI previs and you're floating through there by all the trees and the infinitely thin people on the computer. They always look so amazing. They look futuristic. But then they build them and they're just regular. They're just there. They get dusty like everything else. They get dirty, they're stuck in the environment, and it's never quite the same. Anyway. The problem is that the ideal space for excitement is being packed in like sardines. I mean, when you hear somebody describe a game in an atmosphere like, it felt like everybody was on top of each other. That is the atmosphere you're looking for in these games. And it's a similar atmosphere to things like a rave or a concert. Being packed in there. That is what we're looking for. But unfortunately, the stadiums, they continue to build them with more luxury and more space. And I guess that's nice, but it's not helping. And we're going to see that as we still find that same excitement later today. But what is the point here? Seats have a diminishing return. They really do. If it's empty, they're going to eat into everything else that you built. If they're empty, your team is going to be a joke. But if they're full, you can achieve full maximum excitement. But that arena has the smallest impact out of all the tools in the game. So when your arena looks like this on game day, it's not just a little less loud, but with every pass, pan, and empty rows, your team gets laughed at. Including the complete obliteration of a worthwhile atmosphere. And the other few nice images that we get of the stadiums are these. Blimp shots. Roof shots. Teams need to do better with their roofs. How long have we known that all we're going to get is these blimp shots? Unfortunately, these blimp shots from that angle are pretty bad. It's almost as bad as a multi-million-dollar basketball player showing up on national television without the top of his head brushed. That's the equivalent to a blank roof. Sorry, KD, but the angles are there. You gotta learn the angles, KD. The camera is always above you. So our point, when the game actually starts, these Main Street monstrosities all become virtually meaningless. And when the night is over and they funnel out, the most imposing, expensive part of this entire experiment, basketball, that arena, is just background. It's pointless. Just the other day I saw a video, it was about art, background art. It was about art that is just meant to be obscured deliberately. And you may not even recognize it. This right here. This. Anybody? You know what this is? It's Lego box art. This is the art behind the Legos. On their own, I had no idea what these things were. Until you add the colorful sharpness and the appropriate props and age restrictions on the top of it, then the whole thing comes alive. There it is. Look at that art in the background. That is exactly how I feel about stadiums and arenas, just like these. They are background, and we praise them. We pay for them. And they have nothing. They have no history. They carry no weight. All that effort goes into this exterior, and as much as they're made to fit the city skyline, and sometimes they don't, as much as they try not to make them look like a giant toilet, they do. They're all pulling at the same strings. And these empty stadiums always look empty.
Banners.
Mind blower, huh? Oh, somebody likes the music. Wait, the music and art locally making me want to cry. Oh, good. I have no idea. Does this guy even know basketball? We clearly don't know basketball, guys. We don't. This is known. My appreciation for stadiums, the floor. It's actually theater. It's a stage. It's got lights. I've said this in a million videos. This stage is for a performance. But the performers alone are never enough. Because the league, at least the league believes it, because they try to add all the symbols and lore and dressing to assist in the molding of the mood and atmosphere. So props, what are the props that they use? Here we go. Retired jerseys, banners, other random things, for the sole purpose of hanging it up in the rafters. You ever look up there? There's just a whole bunch of junk up there. And it all signifies something. It's all history. But there's a lot of stuff that happens on the floor too. And we're talking about the ceremonies. Look at these. Ceremonies and ceremonies and more ceremonies. How many ceremonies will the NBA come up with? Some are noble, some are important, some are just filler. I mean, do you even think about how much pageantry is involved in these ceremonies? We have some before the game, in the middle of the game, sometimes after the game. It's nice. I mean, but what does it mean to the actual game? If you go to a game with the Chicago Bulls versus the Sacramento Kings today and look up in the stadium, does that mean anything today? Does that mean anything for that team that day? Rusty, does it? Maybe. I think it makes it feel like there's a little more weight in the room. Because none of those people on the floor actually have anything to do with those banners up there. And it still matters, I think. So what are these ceremonies? We have more. Jersey retirements, trophy presentation, ring ceremonies. And those are just for the teams that succeed. Because we also have things like division titles and coach honors and important scores. They all go up there in the rafters. But my favorite is this one that they do, where they bring back the old teams. And Bill Walton. And Bill Walton. They bring back the old teams, the still breathing members of those old teams, and we clap for them whether they won a championship or not. Because those teams were important to us, and I appreciate that. But then there's stretches. Because sometimes they'll celebrate things like an individual play. Like when Kevin Johnson dunked on Hakeem Olajuwon. 20 years later, they did a whole darn ceremony at halftime honoring the dunk. And people loved it. Look at that painting. That's what it's about. Making up importance. But is that what we're here for? Is that what we're looking for when we watch these games later today? There will be no banners. There will be no 18,000 people. Another one that I like, it's actually kind of embarrassing. It's when Charlotte decided to honor Del Curry. And we'll get to all the questions in a bit, don't worry. I mean, Del Curry, let me see here. He was a man who was on the original Hornets team. He played for 11 years. He's number 1 in all-time minutes. He's number 2 in all-time points. This ceremony had to be a jersey retirement, right? You would expect. But it wasn't. It was this. A blue hexagon. With his service of 1988 to 1998 in his name. And this is what they made for Del Curry after all of those years. Potentially the most recognizable Hornet in franchise history. And this is what they did. This is what will hang or be mounted in their arena. And it will have significance, I guess. That's a shame. Just retire his jersey. Just retire his jersey. But whether it's a blue hexagon or a thank you note hanging from the rafters, they do whatever they want. You could put a yellow silk banner up honoring Ted Turner if you wanted. This is actually a thing. It's all about framing and owning your own franchise and making their history present in the moment that you're watching. How do you bring all of that history into the moment where some new fan is sitting and watching the game? Well, just like your house, you put up pictures. In an arena, you put up banners. But even if there's a little history, when the game starts, even in the biggest arena with the most banners, those banners basically, they go dark.
Dressing and edges.
Sometimes it all comes down to a couple of guys and the hope that they can be clever for 3 hours. Sometimes it all comes down to a couple of guys existing outside the lines. Their influence and ability to frame nearly every circumstance perfectly, attaching their voice and words directly to the guest and their verbiage becomes ours, and their gut takes get absorbed into our beliefs. Or not, because they know how to ruin them too. Some of them have an uncanny ability to ruin the moment. Like Hubie Brown, my personal favorite. A very smart, talented man who sometimes loses the moment, like we all do sometimes. Meandering a great play to death. Take a look at this one. We all know this one.
Davis tries to take it off the dribble inside Oak, rejected by Horace Grant, who leads the team in blocks and tackles.
I'm sure you can tell it wasn't a great call, but let's just look at it again. Let's look at what the call actually was. This is what he actually says. Now right there, a lot was said. Not on, and Scottie Pippen just went over to Spike Lee a few things, also because as Pippen dunked, this was an elevation. Elevation. Oh, good Lord, Hubie Brown. But there's more. There's a more current guy who loves to interject with irrelevant stories. And I think he might have ruined one of the greatest plays that ever could have been, or greatest moments that ever could have been. These are behaviors that you can do in a studio. But when you're announcing and you're attaching your voice to the actual greatest plays in the finals, when this type of thing happens, when people like Klay Thompson got hurt in the 2019 finals, he got back up and came back out on the court to shoot his free throws after basically breaking his knee. This deserves poetry, right? But instead, we got Mark Jackson interjecting with the most inappropriate time to remind people of a previous situation. This guy didn't have to use the restroom. That just stacks up there with the greatest calls of all time, right? Oh, what a move by Jordan. No regard for human life. This guy didn't have to use the restroom. We all know we're referencing Paul Pierce and his poo accident. Finally admitting that he did poop his pants during the 2008 finals. And this is what Mark Jackson brings up. This is what he does for this tremendous Willis Reed-esque moment. Imagine if they would have done something like that to Willis Reed.
And there he is, 6'10" Willis Reed. The crowd is going wild. Reminds me of the time my wife said she'd love me more if I were 6'10".
Wait, I think they did do it to Willis Reed. But as much as these people say, there's not many announcers or reporters that have affected the game so wholeheartedly, encompassingly, as Craig Sager. When Craig Sager had just months to live, or had a final range to be on this earth, the NBA and ESPN and TNT decided to put him back on the sidelines. And that's when the entire NBA and the fan base got smacked with a dose of reality. And there's a clip that I can't really find. It's a pregame clip where Craig Sager, I believe, interviewed Steph Curry. And Steph Curry came over and said, "This game doesn't matter right now. What matters is you, Craig." And that changed something for me in the moment. It was very hard for me to immediately go back to understanding and believing the importance of the game when there's literally a man facing mortality feet away. Lights and cameras shining on him. How do you turn around and scream at a screen or yell at a coach? How do you look at the game and say it's so important when something that is important is also on the court? These TV personalities can make moments, they can frame moments, they can mess moments up. But does that mean that they are framing the game? When we hear the announcers later today, are we going to be listening to them for our moods? Well, I don't think so. Because I think every human emotion is temporary. And I think we'll take any vehicle that will take us from one emotion to the next. If we see an opportunity to go from sadness to happiness, we hop on. And unfortunately, in this case, it just takes a couple of Steph Curry threes.
Just effortless range. Four to shoot. Curry from the 28-foot line. Oh! Steph Curry from way downtown. How about that?
And we're right back. We are right back into the seriousness, the deadly seriousness, as people say, of the game. Just splitting it down the middle, enjoying the moment.
Zigs and zags.
For as much understanding and appreciation we have for this game, it's these lines on the court that are constantly doing the heavy lifting. When it comes to framing, almost everything we cover is metaphorical, conceptual, and slightly removed. But for these little straight and narrows, the framing is literal. Some are intentionally disrespected on a nightly basis, and some lines reign supreme over everybody. We got this line here, the out of bounds line. The god of all games. Side note, have you noticed how shoes today are curved? This almost has extended the court. I know it's by an inch or 2 inches, but in theory, our shoes today, like they affect running and everything else, they have extended the court a couple inches because they can hang right off the edge of the court and still not be out of bounds. Unlike football, there's not an infinite plane that shoots right up from the goal line. These out of bounds lines are parallel to the ground. Unlike before, when shoes were flat, we actually had a smaller court back then. It might not make a big difference, but how many times have we seen somebody tiptoe around the edge of a court or barely stay in bounds? We're dealing with a 90-foot and 2-inch court now. And the out-of-bounds line looms over everyone. When bench players are told not to cross that line when there's a fight on the court, they feel that. Obviously, players. Coaches? Coaches kind of disrespect everything. Coaches, for some reason, have immunity to this line and they can wander past it. Wander past a coach's box if there ever was one. The other set of lines that's very interesting, and I think this actually has lost its relevancy, this is the one that gets ignored, is the box on the back of the backboard. That little guy. You all know what I'm talking about. For years, they used to tell us that's where you put the ball to lay it up. You lay it up right there, right? If you want it to go in, that's what fundamentals look like. But you know what? We've moved past that. The game is innovated and we are beyond that. And players have figured out how to use the entire backboard to get their shots in. With English and spin, whatever you gotta do, we find players using much more than that little box back there. And I feel like we might as well lose it. It's not serving any purpose, and we need to continue to move the game past where we were and acknowledge where we are. People talk about the 4-point line. That's not really a thing to me, but expanding the box on the backboard to acknowledge what layups really are, what scoring really is, it's not contained anymore. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe there is another point to it, but I don't see it. Get rid of it. Get rid of the jump ball circle in the middle too, but that's a different issue. But it all leads me to this. It is the most present and powerful story framing device in the entire sport. It just dominates and controls anyone in its shadow. The clock. That's it. What do you need to make a professional basketball game? You need the court, the players, and the clock. You don't need the crowd. You don't need the announcers, because between the clock and the lines on the court, every critical moment is made. Every assessment, every play is all based on those two items right there. And the tension is built from those two lines also. And that's all we need to hit those highs. In a completely empty arena, all the feats that we're going to watch later today and the rest of this season, it's going to be because of a combination of what is happening between those lines on the court and those lines on the clock. So the great bubble experiment begins, and we observe what aspects of professional basketball have actually carried over. I assure you it's not the giant arenas. It's not the fans, because we're at home. It's simple. It's the court, the stage, the lines, and the clock. And that's it. And that's all we need in this game to enjoy professional basketball. We don't need an asterisk by any of what happens next. We're going to get the competition that we need. And I'll tell you this, and on a final note, in order to get one of these things that you love, all you need is the line and the clock and your favorite player on your favorite team.
Pierce with 5 seconds left. Pierce with 3. Pierce with 2. Pierce full away at the horn.
And final note, this is an add-on as we wrap this up and go to our question time where I look at your comments. Scream. Scream your heart out. We need that. You need that. Sports allows us to explode in ways that we don't usually get to. Look at your life. How often do you get to shout and scream in a non-detrimental way? How often are you screaming, but not at your kids, not at your spouse? In this situation, you get to scream and everybody looks around and understands what you're doing and why you're doing it. Right now, we need those outlets. We need to be able to get the energy out and not hold it in. And low-key, sports has always done that for us. Always leveling us off just a little bit, letting us blow our top when we needed to. And joyfully, or in agony. And then we go back to our normal lives and put our suits on. That's the real beauty in basketball. And I want you to make sure to get as loud as you can when you're watching these games. Because I don't know about you, but I've been pretty quiet the past few months. And this is our chance where our wives and our children and our roommates aren't going to look at us crazy for screaming in the dark. Thank you very much. Let's wrap it up. Everyone, this is Trevor New, and he is a... God, thank you, man. We are clearly experimenting here. Clearly experimenting. And we're working on stuff. We brought the show in just about 33 minutes. That's amazing. I thought this was going to go longer. Obviously, it could have gone smoother, but I don't think the music could have been any better. Who out here has live music? That's amazing, right? And he nailed it. This man nailed it. Follow him, please. Also, check him out on YouTube. Please check him out on YouTube. Before we get to some questions, I need to thank Ian and Kurt. I don't know if they want to pull themselves up here. Producer and technical director. Again, I'm telling you, we're only on our second show. Any criticism you have, any sort of reason that they're hitches, it's because we're still just working this up and getting it together. So I'm going to go through a few of my comments here. Also, if you have any questions for Trevor, please put them up there. All right. Here's one. Larry Bird was the most fundamental player ever and the easiest superstar to play with. Curry is right next to him in being easiest to play with all time. And Bernard King is the most underrated scorer of all time. Oh, it's a flat-out comment. You tell him. Mindful attraction. He tells us that Bernard King is the most underrated scorer of all time and that Larry Bird was the easiest superstar to play with. That's interesting. I mean, I definitely say that Steph Curry is a superstar that is very easy to play with. He's also a superstar willing to take a back seat. And obviously people judge him for that. They will deride his legacy and pretend as if it was a thrust upon him, that he couldn't have done anything about it. I guess that's up to be debated. I don't know, because I know what I saw. And I saw Steph Curry decide to play a secondary role. That's considerate. And people aren't used to that. They are not used to that. Larry Bird, on the other hand, you know what? There was a point in his career where he did. He scored less points. And he actually didn't even win all the finals MVP, if people know that. If anybody wants to add in the chat here who won the final the one Celtics finals MVP that Larry Bird didn't get, just to show you how irrelevant finals MVP can be. Not in defense of Steph Curry. Okay, there's another comment in here that I definitely had to get to. If we replace the square on the backboard, what's the optimal shape to replace it with? It's already a square. It's already a rectangle. It's just a big blank rectangle. That's what I think we should put up there. And maybe with all of our technology, you can track where the most points on the backboard are actually hit, where most layups are actually utilize the backboard, or shots. Maybe put little dots in those places so we can really get a view of what the fundamentals of basketball are, because they are not that box. And I'm talking to you, coach from high school. It's not the box. Is there a difference between better and greatness? People, great, and thank you for keeping it going, Trevor. Greatness, man. Greatness is thrown around way too much. You can even talk about the GOAT, and people talk about people in the GOAT conversation. There's no conversation for GOATs. There's only one of them, and either you have it or you don't. Greatness needs to be used a lot less. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by better, but there's obviously levels of better. But greatness is something that should be held much higher. And I feel like players who are still playing necessarily can't be great, because they can always still let you down, I think. All right. Give the ball to Randy. That's right. Gotta admit, this man is super creative. Mindful. Thank you. There you are again. Where'd it go? Let's see. You're like a 30-year-old Bob Costas. All right. I'll take it. I'll put, you know what, I'm gonna put that on my profile. The 30-year-old Bob Costas. I was not here from the start, but I enjoyed the show and the music. It was great. Keep up the good work, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. People from everywhere. Look at these people from everywhere. No, it wasn't Kevin McHale. Kevin McHale was not the guy. Robert Parrish was not the guy. What's my opinion on the MVP race? Here's what the whole point of my channel is, that my opinion doesn't on the actual game and what's happening doesn't matter. I try to take my opinion outside of the actual play on the court, and I try to just enjoy it. With that said, I'm bored this year of the MVP race. I want to love Giannis as much as I would appreciate any other MVP. I think his ceiling is further along, and for some reason, he'll reign again this year, I think. I think if they gave it to LeBron James, I'd be fine with that. You know what? A lot of people think that the clutch agenda is a negative agenda, the one where everybody's promoting LeBron and he's clearly the best of all times. And the person they compare him to all time is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan had a machine behind him when he played. Michael Jordan had a league, television networks, an entire shoe company devoted to him. They made a statue outside of Chicago Stadium after his first retirement. And on that statue it said, "The greatest to ever do it." they were putting that out there so early. That was after 3 championships. After the first championship, did you know that I believe ABC, the network ABC, they put on a whole darn tribute in prime time to Michael Jordan? It wasn't a fundraiser. It wasn't to benefit anything. It was a full-blown comedy tribute with celebrities, a whole darn introduction and graphics, just because he was there. I don't think that kind of thing would exist now. I don't think they'd put on a full-blown special for LeBron James on ABC at 9 o'clock just cuz. Not anymore. Greetings from Serbia. Serbia, I have a long history with Serbia. I used to make YouTube videos on a different channel, and I got a lot of attention in Serbia and Brazil. I am not going to tell you guys what that channel is or why I got that attention. How do you find all the random facts that you make your videos about? Like, how do you see that? Okay, thank you for mentioning. We need something a little more intense right now, because I'm about to go in. Michael Jordan kicking John Stockton. I may be known now for identifying that John Stockton has no left hand, and now it is universally understood that he was not great with his left. But Michael Jordan kicking John Stockton with the final 5 seconds of the 1997 NBA Finals, preventing him from recovering onto Steve Kerr, who hit the game-winning shot, is greatness that nobody has noticed. 23 years, and I haven't seen a single person actually talk about this. I Googled it, and nobody has even written about it. And it is clear as day. When Michael Jordan goes up to pass, he lets go of the spot-on, precise pass to Steve Kerr. John Stockton is already turning so he can recover. I'd go up to my whiteboard here, but I can't reach it right now. We'll do the whiteboard next show. And while he was in the air, while Michael Jordan was in the air, he stuck his leg out at a little 45-degree angle. There you go. And tripped John Stockton. And he fell to the floor and had no chance of getting to Steve Kerr. And immediately the announcers said John Stockton slipped. Later on, they didn't even acknowledge it, as if John Stockton's just fallen on the floor all the time. When has John Stockton ever just fell on the floor? Does he just fall all the time? Please show me the clip where he's falling around. He may not have a left hand, but he was well-centered, and he was a tough little guy. He was not falling, and everybody just let that one go until I spotted it. And I don't know why it was me. Maybe it's because I'm not watching the ball. But I saw that, and I had to investigate it for a couple of days before I decided to make a video about it, because it was just too obvious. For years, people have made such a big deal about Michael Jordan pushing Brian Russell, whether it's a push, whether he just guided him. We made such a big deal about Reggie Miller pushing Michael Jordan in the playoffs. Was it a push? Was it legal? Meanwhile, we let Michael Jordan kick the crap out of John Stockton in order to get the game-winning shot in the bucket. Please spread the news. This is one of the greatest plays in finals history, and it needs to be recognized and put on everybody's list. Let's keep it moving. Yes, the ABC tribute is somewhere. I actually put it on my second channel. I put the whole thing up there. Ooh. What if Malone could only catch the ball from one side of the court? Well, I think we'd have... I don't think it would change much. John Stockton was actually able to go to both sides and pick up his dribble. Obviously, he favored one, but it was never much of a situation of being only able to dribble to the right, because he would go to the left side a lot. But it was always within a couple dribbles he'd pick the ball up. Damian Lillard is not overrated. Damian Lillard just says too much. Sometimes it's about keeping quiet, like Paul Pierce. And I'll give myself 1 minute here to talk about Paul Pierce, because we are out of time. Paul Pierce is ruining his own legacy. What are you gonna do? He went on TV right away. He went on TV to defend himself, to compare himself. Why do you do that? You either let other people do it or pay other people to do it. Other people need to come up with the monikers and the stories and the cliches and the behind-the-scenes myths and tales, not yourself. You become too accessible when you show up on TV the day after you retire, and you start having to talk about the players and what you don't like and do like, and every day your legacy is diminished. Disappear for a while. Dwayne Wade, is not too late. Quit your job and disappear for a while. Let us build you up before you show up on TV and make us question everything. Cedric Maxwell. There he is. Ian. The other Ian. Ian Douglas. My man Ian. This guy deserves 1,000 points. That guy. How are you doing, man? I hope you've been around for most of the show. D. Mathers says this guy knows basketball. No, none of us do. We all clearly, say it with me in your homes, we clearly don't know basketball. So, as the games almost start today, I want to thank all my patrons, and I will put this video up on there. I'll share some more stuff with them. If you want to be a patron, go over there. I'm actually trying to pay them a little bit more attention now. It's been kind of a neglectful relationship. I actually have somebody on the team now whose sole job is to send out shirts. Please, nobody mention anything about shirts right now. But it's happening. That's it, guys. Trevor, you got a lot of thanks in the comments here. I don't know what you want to say or what you want to add or how people can follow you. Oh, wait, here we go. I got something else. Okay. How good do you think Wilt was in Barkley versus Duncan? This is a question that just takes a long time. There's two ways to look at past players. The two ways to look at past players are if you just pluck them out of their time in a time-traveling device and put him down today. The other way is to imagine that Wilt was born in 1995. That same frame, the same DNA, the same thought process, same potential. In today's world, could he be great? And if that's the case, people like Bill Russell, with his IQ and his ability to think about the game, plus his size and his ability, and all of today's training, these men could have been just as great, maybe not as dominant, but they could have been great in any era. It doesn't work for everybody. But when you have somebody who's athletically inclined and smart, you can drop them in any era, assuming that they are being born in that era and not just time traveled. All right. Please, anything you want to say to the folks, Trevor? This is your moment.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, really happy to be playing. And thank you for enjoying the music, enjoying the show.
Yeah, the music has been like, I think 70% of the goodwill right now. People are like, just play the music. It's great. It's good. I mean, I feel like I'm in my element now. Obviously, I was going off of a script for a while and trying to weave in some of just the natural stuff that comes to me. And it's mostly for timing. That's what it is. It was mostly for timing. I could have rambled my way through all of that stuff, but we'd be here for an hour and a half. And my goal is to get you out in time so you can watch your bubble games. Bubble games with no asterisks. No asterisks Asterisks. No, none. It's competition. Competition is competition. Who cares? Whoever's available is whoever's available. That happens every year. People can't play. People get injured. Teams don't succeed. Teams get decimated by injuries and aren't what they were the last year. We are in the current circumstance we are in, and the players are going to show up and play, and the competition is going to be competition. And as long as we have the lines, and we have that clock, and we have heart, the games matter just as much. Okay, I think somebody asked, what is the storyteller's name? Mr. Storyteller. No, that's my name. The Storyteller. There you go. Okay. I love each and every one of you. Let's take this thing home. Go enjoy your games. Signing off.